If you saw, we had a pretty fast and furious conversation going on, and no one took notes. It was very organic, it was really cool. It was mostly Yves and Eric, because they seem to be really well informed on this. It was kind of a bunch of different topics. It started with exchanges, like talking about Dan's proposal, and then going from there. They kept asking me to come and say something about that crazy conversation. So I'm going to attempt to do that. I just put some notes together. I'm going to read them, and then I'm going to sit down, because it's crazy. All right, so conversation was different staking buckets don't help much, as exchanges will vote with customer funds via fractional reserve. And that was just a concept we were talking about. Maybe this doesn't have the solution as much as we think. Exchanges are acting as custodians for a small number of large token holders who direct the exchanges how to use their tokens. So there's this perception that there's like 1 million users with 5 EOS, when it's more likely there's 5 users with 1 million EOS, that kind of deal. And I think we were just getting clarity about how things actually work, which is really helpful. Let's see here. Some think exchanges don't care about the long-term governance and the perception value of EOS, while others had similar conversations with similar exchange executives who do care about the long-term value, and they think in terms of 10 years, not just like 6 or 12 months. Low battery warning. Okay, moving on. Technical or geographic centralization, we discussed as less of a concern because it's really easy to just spin up nodes now. It takes a handful of hours. So if there was a geographic or technical problem, that's pretty not big of a deal to do. But one thing that we did discuss that is a problem is like ownership concerns, where it's like, okay, these are supposed to be independent voting block producers, but they might actually be all controlled by one person. So that led to some other discussions about exchanges or groups of people, block producers specifically, that form together and kind of have aligned economic incentives. And the discussion was, well, does that mean that they all vote together? Because that's that kind of ownership thing. Is that a cartel, for example? And so one example that was brought up is actually Ghostbusters. So it's like, okay, here's a group of BPs that have an aligned incentive, they work together on projects and stuff. And it was used as an example. Then the other point was brought up, but yeah, we don't vote the same way. Some don't vote at all, some vote differently. And then that was used as a counterexample with the same quote-unquote potential cartels having quote-unquote sock puppets, maybe aren't voting the same way either. In a similar, they might have aligned incentives based on their token valuations and all that, but they might not actually be voting the same way. Sorry, now I need to unlock my phone. Here we go. All right. Okay, and then we discussed the importance of centralized conversations, which is really interesting. The idea in the very end that we kind of came to was that it's really, really important for people to talk freely, and so therefore sometimes it's important to have those private conversations where people feel that they can do that with groups of people that they align with. But then we also were saying the importance of public conversations where people can also talk freely is really important too, and that's essentially what we just did here. It was really great. Everyone was passionately publicly describing what matters most to them. And it was just a really good discussion about, can DPoS work if there's all these like back chain conversations? Is that good? Is that bad? And ultimately, we agreed it's whatever's on chain is what matters. So you can have all these conversations. You can have private conversations where people feel free to say whatever they want, and then ultimately from that something goes on chain, which is fine. My personal preference is like it's even better when they're transparent. But we kind of discussed that at the very end. Is that anything? Yep, that's basically it. So hopefully that was a good summary of that crazy conversation. Thank you all for listening.